Sometimes there are bends in the road and you can't see what's coming around the corner. And occasionally I've come around the corner and been somewhere totally unexpected. You know, I wasn't expecting that to be around the corner. And actually, in reality, once I went round the corner, I was actually somewhere else when I was 7 miles transported up the road because I was late to a meeting. And I drove around the corner. I knew what was coming and it wasn't there. And I'm like, where I mean, weird, didn't feel anything, just was somewhere else. You know, and sometimes it's like that. It's like there's so many unexpected things, surprises for us. They're not surprises to God, obviously, but he likes to surprise us sometimes. You know, and some of those things, it's like we're out of our comfort zone. Where am I? And I'm out of my comfort zone right now. You know, there are some things going on that I'm totally out of my comfort zone with. But it is exciting to be out of your comfort zone when you see it like that. Go for it, Robin.
This is just like I was looking through some of the handouts, and I'm just wondering, you have a section on the heavenly realms, and you've got this little handout with the Kayuth and Ophanim and Aralim and Kashmalim and so on and so forth. So I was just wondering, Mike, did you find any sources that talk about this and the kind of arrangement, or, just if you could maybe give us a little bit of background on that? Or
I think if you look in the Bible, you'll find a lot of things translated angels have the different words in Hebrew that they're all translated angels. Obviously, you have Malak as a general angel, but there's lots of others where those things are mentioned. Obviously, seraphim, cherubim, they're sort of more common ones, but they are in there, but not been translated because it's a word that doesn't mean, in a sense, what does it mean? Well, it means what it means, and therefore, if you translate it in English, you don't get the sort of meaning. So they just translated it all angels. So there are a lot of them are mentioned in the Bible.
Well, it was kind of like wondering, like a hierarchy. I'm a little bit familiar with Pseudo Dionysius the Areopagite, if you're familiar with him. He was like a 5th century kind of Neoplatonic Christian writer who claimed to be Dionysius the Areopagite, the follower of St. Paul, but he had written, some information on angelic hierarchies. But, I was thinking there's probably biblical source, and maybe there's other sources I mean,
part of the thing is you'll probably find some of those sources are not necessarily Christian, and therefore you've got to be discerning in what you take from those sources and what you don't. Just because something is the same, it's like Metatron, Melchizedek, all of these sort of names are in the Bible, or they're sort of referred to in some senses, but they have a lot of different meanings in different sectors of out there. And so just because you have the same word doesn't necessarily mean that they mean the same thing. So I'd always be encouraging people to be discerning.
Where is Metatron in the Bible?
It's not exactly in the Bible, but it is an angel that is well known in various circles, but they have a different meaning for that angel. And some of it, the best source for any of it is to go back to the Father or to Jesus and ask him to take you through that canopy, because we know that according to book of Revelation, there are myriads upon myriads of angels around the throne. And so those canopies, so 10,000 times 10,000, which is a lot. And therefore that's really where you sort of see that there are angels around the throne, and there are many different angels mentioned in the Bible that are make up that group or groupings. And the best thing to do is ask Jesus to take you through the canopy and experience it, and then you get to find out firsthand how you relate to that canopy, because I think people will relate to it differently. It's not the same for everyone in that we're all different, and therefore our interaction with the angelic realm is unique, I think. Now that doesn't mean that there aren't similarities. Like, you know, when I engage in a legislation group and we meet an angel or we talk to an angel, well, then we do that. But I know when I've originally started to engage with angels more legislatively and for purpose, the 4 angels of transformation that I began to engage with initially in our locality, and then when I traveled, I realized that they were an order and they went with me and they could stay. When you go back to a place and then you talk to them about how they interacted with those angels, you find all sorts of different perspectives. And, you know, I remember going to Seattle and sharing it there and introducing those angels to them there. And then when I went back and did another conference there, I found that they had sort of made pictures or various things that illustrated how they related to them. And I was quite interested just to look and see, because it wasn't how I related to them in a way, but it was still valid because it was how the angels had engaged with them. And they're in a different situation and circumstance from me. So it was all good. You know, I resonated with it. It wasn't that I thought, oh, this isn't right, just different. And I think that's why we must not try and formalize something or make something totally protocol driven, because God may have different things to show you than he does me when we engage. So that's perfectly okay. So I would encourage people to engage these things for themselves rather than just get the information from somewhere else. You know, if you're talking about the heavenly realms, there's something you would talk about because they are there. You know, layers of angels are there. But I don't want to make it prescriptive, which is why I don't go into it in great depth, because I think that depth needs to be done by the individual for their own experience, rather than them just listening to me and what I would say about them for my experience. So I tend to, in a lot of it, give the basic understanding and don't go deeper, because I think that's what God would want to take each person on a journey that will take them deeper into it, which means then people can have their own experience and that's valid for them. You know, otherwise you'll be trying to have my experience and that won't be valid for you because it's mine. So, but the experience is there for everyone to have, but they'll all have it in ways which relate to them and will make it more sense to them. And I think that's the best way of looking at it. You could go and look into various mystical books and you could probably find out things about those angelic orders. How much of that would be absolutely true, I couldn't say, and I didn't get my information from there. I know Ian Clayton has taught on that angelic canopy, and I think he's just brought out some sort of digital version of that thing. And he probably has different teaching on some of it. And again, I think each person will have some perspective according to how that fits in with their destiny and their purpose. You know, and there will be things that I wouldn't see particularly or share because it isn't the way I've engaged, but others would, and that doesn't make it invalid. It just makes it their experience, which is why, you know, I shared quite a number of things early on in the Engaging God program that related to some of the things that I did from Ian Clayton's teaching, but I did it in my way, in my experience. So I wasn't sharing his teaching, I was sharing my experience of the things that he'd shared, you know. And actually I think that's how it should be. You know, it's like you can't share something and then copyright it if it's kingdom. You know, you got to allow people to explore it themselves and have their own experiences with it. So I shared my experiences of like the gateways or any of those things, but they were very different from other people's because they were mine, you know. And Jesus took me and showed me what those gateways meant to me and how they operated in me, which may be very different from somebody else, which is why we all have to experience it ourselves, and we can't just receive intellectual information. And, you know, and I think it's valid to do that. I think it's valid to share your if someone's teaching something and you have an experience of it, I think it's perfectly valid for you to share your experience of it. And I don't think you're in any way trying to say that your experience was exclusive and trying to copy their material or whatever. I just don't think that it's necessary. You know, if people have experiences, let's say in my teaching with the chancellor's houses or whatever, I'd be fascinated to hear it. I wouldn't be like, oh, you can't talk about that because it's your experience. I do have an issue with some issues of plagiarism when you know those people don't have any experience of it and they're actually just putting down the things that you've put, but making it out as if it is their own. Now, I think that's a problem. And I think as long as you give reference to the original things that stimulated your experience, I don't have a problem with that at all. And I wouldn't have any problem people sharing their experiences they've had with the things I've taught. But I know some things I've taught no one else has taught. And no one else had that information. And there isn't, you can't find it anywhere else because it was directly given. And I don't mind if people take that and go further with it. But I think those that try and make it as their own and then try and explain it to people or lead people into it, it's not valid. And the experiences that I've heard of people trying to engage something that they have no personal revelation on themselves actually creates confusion. And I've heard people have asked me questions about some things, and I know they're confused because the person who tried to lead them into something had no personal experience of it. They were just using information. And that is just secondhand information, which doesn't mean revelation. Revelation opens a door. Information leads someone maybe to go and pursue something for themselves, but it's hard to lead something into something you don't have experience of, which is why originally when I did a lot of teaching, I would usually have, maybe 6 months or more before I taught a subject until that subject became founded, cemented in my life. I didn't want to just share the next day that I had this experience when I needed to have that as something which was consistent in my life. Otherwise, I'm sharing something superficial, which may go deeper and deeper and maybe much more revelation around it that I would receive over the next months. So I would wait. Now some groups would push my buttons in ways that they would get me to talk about something I wasn't really wanting to talk about, but they sort of got me to talk about some things. And I would ramble quite often because it would be like, yeah, but this is just an experience I had. I've not really cemented that experience in my life. And I sort of like, I would find myself rambling and I'm like, no, I need to stop talking about this because actually I'm really not going as deep as I will be able to. So it's better to wait, which is, what I found, in doing that is better to make sure that you really know what rather than you just had an experience. So they're there. They're all there for everyone to encounter, but let God lead it. And then, you can be safe in that place that's where God wants you to be or where he wants you to go. Some people are fascinated by subjects. There are certain subjects that I've always had an interest in, and that can, in one sense, drive me to want to know more about a subject because I've always had an interest in it. And I found that that's not always the wisest thing because that's me leading me to try and get understanding around something and not God leading me there. I'd much rather let God lead me wherever he wants me to go. And then I just sort of wait, and sometimes, I'll ask questions of him, can you give me any more information on this, whatever. And if he does, that's great. But sometimes he doesn't. And it's like, okay, you obviously don't want to talk about it right now, but eventually most things have opened up to a greater depth. As I've just been patient and enjoyed where I am and not got frustrated. Some people get frustrated because they want to go where other people have talked about, and it may not be the season for them to do that. And patience is really important on this journey. Otherwise, we'll rush ahead and God will be somewhere else. And we've gone off somewhere and he's not there. You know, then you get like, whoa, where am I? Where's God? You know, well, I've left the path that he was leading me on, gone and followed my own path to try and find out something for myself, which, you know, I don't want to do. So anyway.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, Mike and everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep. All good.
I have moved from South Florida to the Indianapolis area, and I just arrived the other night and don't have my computer set up yet. So for the first time with you, I'm on my phone here with Zoom. Everything is okay?
Yep. We'll see you fine.
Good, good.
Yep. You're
Okay.
this way rather than this way, but that's okay. That's how phones do it. If you do it that, you're now this way.
Yeah, I switched it. Is this any better? All the same?
You're turned up the other way now. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. We can see you fine. It's just how phones generally put their pictures in a vertical frame rather than a horizontal one. It's all right. It's all good. Good see you.
Good, good.
Okay. Anything you want to talk about while you're there? Or?
Not at the moment. I'll think of something.
All right.
Just a quick question though. Why did you leave Florida and all that golfing weather?
Right. Well, sometimes circumstances dictate, and this was one of those times that it was not really what I desired to do, but again, circumstances dictated the same, and so I had to say goodbye, and we'll see what develops again in the future. I wouldn't mind going back down there, but presently, not right now able to do that.
Okay.
I'm sure they do have golf courses in Indianapolis, though, don't they?
They have many. I lived here in the past for a number of years, so it's a matter of me getting all healed up from the loss of strength in my hand, etc., to be able to play a decent game again. You know.
Yeah, it's always a good walk, though. You know,
that's true. Although I ride on that cart.
Yeah, well, for me it was like, yeah, okay, the round wasn't so good, but the walk was great. Always take some optimistic view out of it. I mean, I played for the first time in probably 3 years, a month or so ago, and it was like this course was like really hard. It was on the edge of a cliff, overlooking the sea, wind blowing.
Wow.
Out of the 18 holes, I think 11 of them were blind drives.
My goodness.
And I haven't picked up a club for like 3 years. So it was like the first few holes were like bad, not so good. And then I sort of found my rhythm, and I managed to get a few pars on the way in. But I enjoyed the walk, and the scenery was spectacular, and it was good. I was there with some good friends, and met a few other people. So it was like a golf day, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, actually. I'm sure that
wonderful. Glad to hear that.
Yeah. So, but I was positive about the fact that my expectations need to be managed. You know, I was unlikely to go out there and play par golf,
right,
on a course I'd never been on, and it was really hard. You know, and you get those links courses that you've got to drive like 180 yards before you get over all the rubbish. And it's like, it's intimidating. It was like, oh my word. So I played safe a few times with an iron.
I'd have been playing the forward tees with my condition, so just do what I have to do right now.
Yeah, all good. All right, okay. All right, anybody else?
I want to share something real quick. You know, Mike, when you have shared your experiences about situations that you have actually changed, like some of your flight, where you thought you were going to be late in the airplane, and you just say, no, I need to be there. You know how you legislate the change.
Yep.
So had this lady stop by to discuss some fabrics and curtains in her 1902 historical home. So I made the initial appointment, went to the house, absolutely beautiful, old, lots of wood, just absolutely elegant historical home. And they had converted it back to its original footprint from multiple apartments. Anyway, when I first stepped in there, first stepped into the entryway, I just felt at home. And I was just kind of listening to her, but I wasn't even really in the house. It was just, I was feeling the atmosphere of this home. Anyway, so she's taking me through all of the rooms. Absolutely amazing house. And hopefully I can take some pictures and share it. Anyway, so she's wanting me to customize draperies and window coverings for every room in this house. And I'm going, Lord, this is just way beyond my expertise. But there was such a connection with her and with this home. So I mused over it for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, and I hadn't met her husband yet. And so I wanted to have some kind of presentation in writing to give them my proposal. And I just kept saying, Lord, I know that this is just way beyond my expectations, but obviously you want to do something here. So I began to just study and meditate on the project. And usually when I have a project somebody wants me to create, I don't mess with it until I see it in my head, and then I can manifest it I can create it. And so it just hadn't come to me. And so I just started to engage it in a different realm. And I said, I really need to get an understanding of your creativity that is waiting to be released to bless these people. So one day I'm sitting in my living room and I'm just engaging the spirit and thinking about this house and these people and what they want me to do. And all of a sudden, it just like it dropped in my spirit. And I saw it and I started to write this proposal. And so I met with them yesterday, and they are absolutely, totally excited about this project. And they said, well, when can you get started? I said, well, I'll get started right away, straight away. So I'm starting in the kitchen and working outward. This is a 2-story home. Absolutely the most exciting project. But the key was that number one, God wanted to stretch the ability. It's the creativity. And I felt like these angels of creativity were all around me for these people. The first time I stepped into this house, I felt the personality of this home as if it was saying to me, I am so thankful for this couple that want to take care of me. It was kind of weird. And I shared this with her. And she said, I get the same thing about this house. So, there's just a lot of different caveats about what is taking place here. And the other thing is, when you're self-employed, you depend on, well, I was going to say something, but I'm going to not even. There is this trust factor, and God's endless and limitless provision is available. It's endless and limitless. And it's just our own thinking that keeps us stuck. Anyway, this project, she said, well, we're going to start in the kitchen, but I want you to do my whole house, our whole house. And I'm thinking, I've got work all the way through the winter. And that's usually my slow time. And they were so excited. And I'm thinking, oh, what have I really done here? But it's so exciting to see the avenues that God is opening up. And when you say, okay, I know it's inside of me waiting to be released, so help me, give me a plan. And he gave me a plan, and it was just like so amazing. And I'm waking up just in a total a total gosh, life is so good. It's exciting and challenging, and there's tons of peace. It's just like I'm just so at rest. But the intent to bless this couple is really what I'm after, and to do an excellent job for them. And then the house will be very happy. I mean, oh, but I could tell you stories about just this a little bit of encounter I've had with them. But when you engage with the purpose that God has in mind and you come into agreement with that, then you just are at so much rest and peace, and you just walk it out day by day. And you say, okay, so what's the challenge here? How am I going to do this? I have no clue, but he does, and I'm going to get it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely so. Because in a sense, choosing a reality doesn't have to be so far removed from everyday life that it's like this amazing thing. It's like every day we choose, and what you chose was to accept your identity in God as opposed to the fear of not being able to do something. You agreed with God that you are creative and he led you into this. Therefore, every day you can just have that expectation. I have all that I need today. You might not have anything in your head when you say that, when you mean it, but you will. And that's the thing. It's like, I have all that I need to do all that I'm going to do every day, no matter what it is. And that's the expectation I live by, because if I have a destiny, it's totally unfair if I don't have what I need to fulfill that destiny. And God doesn't do that. He equips us, but it's always a little bit of a wild ride, And it's like I saw a meme thing with a guy, a little boy in a roller coaster, and he was holding I think it looked like his sister or something. Someone was next to him, and they were like having this amazing laugh. They were laughing, and this little boy was like, his hair was going up in the roller coaster, and he was like, ah! Yeah. And in the meme, it said, Holy Spirit pointing to the one who was laughing, and me pointing to the little boy. It's just like, and it was like that sometimes. It feels like, wow, this is a wild ride, and there's a huge risk in one sense to me in my soul, but actually, I'm safe. He's got me. And he's got you. He's with you. He's not going to leave you in the middle of this whole thing. And you'll find that, there'll be more stretchings, and there'll be more things where it's like inspiration will come on. And I think that's really the adventure of life. Life is an adventure. It is not supposed to be boring, and it's not supposed to be without risk. Stepping out, trust, because if you don't have any risk, there's nothing to trust in. Because risk and trust go together in effect. Because I'm stepping out, I'm trusting that God's going to be there. It's like, if he says, jump off here, I'll catch you. Well, there's a risk. Now, he's going to catch you, but your soul and your body may be quite reticent compared to your spirit sometimes of what to jump out of or jump off, but he catches you, but you trust him. And I think the first time you do it, it's somewhat daunting. And each time you do it, it's still, you got that little, but he's faithful and he's dependable and he's there. He'll be there for you. And I'm sure you can begin to choose some realities of creativity to say, hey, let's see some things here that have never been done before. Or let's see some new creative thoughts about how this is done. And expressions. And I love the fact you're talking about the house, because the house itself, you're connecting to, not just the people. And I think that is important, because you don't want to do something that's contradictory to the character and nature of the house, which will be causing discord. You want it to be harmonious. And I think it's great that that this is happening, because I remember, you're talking about lots of times in your life about, I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting, and am I going to do it? And I'm waiting, and but hey, you're on an adventure and a journey, and you're stepping out, and God's doing some great stuff. And I'm sure there's a purpose spiritually in there as well.
Yeah.
That you'll find that you being there will have an impact in that setting, whatever that might be. You'll bring peace into it. You'll bring that sense of joy and life into it, which will be something which I think will add more to what you're going to be doing practically with you being involved, because it's you that God is really interested in, and your involvement is going to be a very positive thing for them.
Well, I asked her, the first time we talked, she said to me, she threw out this comment and said, we have a lot of high-end designers in Lincoln that, we could approach about helping us with this design. But she said, I was looking for somebody with a heart to, how did she say it? That she was looking for somebody that cared about the house.
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I feel like that your home is saying, thank you for restoring me to my original intent. I told her that. And she said, that's exactly how I feel about this. And I said, I almost feel like that your home is got a female flavor to her, and I kept calling her, and so I had to explain where that was coming from. But we so connected, and she happened to find my number. I have a sign in my yard, and she drove by and called, and that was our original contact. But the whole thing is that if we are called, if we have a sphere of authority in an area like our community or whatever God's given you, then all of that will manifest as we just say, yeah, great, I'm willing to take this on. I have no clue what I'm doing, but he does. And so, but this is part of my wheelhouse in Lincoln for right now.
Yeah.
And so I cannot, and I take on every project. I never say no to people. To anything, and now this is something that really is it's exciting. It is a daunting task for sure, but I inside of me there is the capability to do this. So everything that I'm learning to do, I'm not saying everything, but what I'm learning to do is really consult the heavenly realm first. And then wait, and don't go ahead of what, if you don't get something, you just wait, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't change direction, stay where you are until he says something different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, life is really interesting, to say the least. And I just, anybody that feels like, oh, I can't do it. Oh my goodness. How am I going to handle this? God will give you the tools to do it. He will, and you and him together. Oh my goodness. What a great team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, and I think we just mustn't limit ourselves, and so often we do because of memory and past and what people have said or whatever. But nothing is impossible with God, and God's desire is that we're not limited, that there is abundance of grace, limitless grace, to empower us to be fruitful, and that fruitfulness is goes beyond just so what people normally think from a religious setting of fruitfulness, to you being you in the fullest expression of who God created you to be, which is great. I do. I think it's an awesome testimony. So thank you for sharing it. So, yeah. Great. Sharon.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to share a thank you for today's discussion. I have heard so many nuggets. There's a line, a string of messages that I'm receiving from everyone that shared this morning. I am in the midst of a decomposition process, right? And in my learning how to be in this stretch season. And in so much of what has been said today, I've received answers and encouragement to continue on in this journey. At one point, it was Mary who was talking about being on that high precipice looking down and, you know, not being afraid of the heights. They got you yoked in, but it's an adventure, right? And then, Mike, you mentioned that, you know, we just have to not deviate. So I remember having I don't think it was a dream. I think it was an encounter where the Spirit of the Lord took me down into the depths and he was just showing me wonders of the deep. And I got excited and started chasing after some things that I was seeing. And I looked around and I had walked away from him. And that was such a powerful lesson for me because I kind of panicked, but he was right there. But it was a lesson for me. And so where I am in this decomposition process, it's like, I'm not sure where I'm going, but I'm taking that risk and I'm stepping out and I'm being led, following the Spirit. And that's what I'm learning. I love that you said to consult with heaven and then wait. So what am I saying? I'm saying thank you for today's conversation. It may seem like it's disparate and separated, but it absolutely is speaking to my heart and encouraging me in where I am in my journey. So that's what I wanted to say.
Welcome. It's great. And I think that's the value sometimes of people sharing things from different perspectives, and you pick up various things from various people. It's not about me giving all the information. It's about people sharing that which actually will benefit each of us, and we can receive from each other. That's why we need each other. You know, we're not independent. You know, we need to operate interdependent, and therefore there are things that we can share with each other. And I'd encourage you, that process for me, you know, when I think about the process I went through of challenging my thinking and my experience and all of it, it was a challenge. You know, it wasn't easy to sort of have the fact that most of the things you thought were true challenged by God to say, hey, where did you get this truth from? Why did you think this was true? I've shown you this. And now, cognitive dissonance was a major part of my process. I had an experience, it didn't line up with what I believed. So what's wrong, the belief or the experience? Well, the experience was right because God gave it me. Therefore, I had to say, oh, my thinking's wrong, which is not always easy to accept when it's been programmed in you. Often for me, sometimes things were programmed in since I was 2 years old. You know, taught in Sunday school various things. And then all of a sudden, it's like God encounters something and shows you something and you experience something, and all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, this doesn't compute, it doesn't line up, you know, and you're almost like wavering, and that's what cognitive dissonance does. It causes you to be double-minded. Well, ultimately you're unstable when you're double-minded, so you've got to make a choice. You know, so for me it was always going to be, I'm going to choose what God has shown me rather than what I thought I knew. But it wasn't easy always to do it. And sometimes there was a quite intense shaking of those beliefs when I went through them, you know, but it's worth it. You know, coming to the knowledge of the truth, which then sets you free, is worth all of the journey process to get there. And no matter how hard, you know, when I first started to be challenged over certain beliefs about what happens after death and all of that, I didn't want to talk about it with anybody. It was like, I just wanted to keep it to myself. It's like, okay. And it's like, and ultimately I know that God wouldn't let me keep it to myself, but I didn't want to get all the hassle and all the trying to, all the fuss it will kick up when you start talking about things that challenge the sacred cows of the religious systems and all of that. And I had to take stock. I think the 3 weeks was the longest I sort of resisted, of like, oh, do I really have to go there? Do I really want to go there? It's like, oh, I don't want to go there. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to have to go there because it's the truth. I can't deny the truth. I can't have integrity and keep the truth secret in my heart. So it was like, okay, it's going to get me into trouble with a lot of people, but it's the truth. So, hey, Jesus, you're the truth. So it really is your problem. I'm just following you. And he said to me, if anyone's got a problem with anything you teach, you can just tell them, go and talk to me because I'm the truth. You don't have to defend yourself. You don't have to prove. You just point them to me. Take it up with me. It's not your problem. Send them my way. And so, okay, fine. That's what I'll do. Which is why I don't enter into a lot of online debates over things. I sometimes tempted to, but no, it's like, no, I'm not going to, because I know from past experience that whatever I say will get twisted by someone to be interpreted by what they think I'm saying, which agrees with what they want me to be saying. And sometimes it's like, no, I'm not going there anymore. So I'm not here to change people's minds. Only God can renew someone's mind. So I'd encourage you, keep on, don't give up. Sometimes it's quite difficult, particularly when there are, deep-seated beliefs, which, you've held all your life sometimes. And it's just like, and then God just shows you something different. And it's like, wow, I never saw it like that. You're so good. I mean, God is so much better than I ever imagined he could be. He just is, because I was programmed to believe in a God which in certain circumstances wasn't as good as I wanted him to be. But actually, he's much better than ever I could imagine or think, or anyone can, because he's pure, unconditional love. And that is what really, I think, kept me on the journey, knowing that he loved me unconditionally. And if people didn't, that's okay. And if people choose not to because of what you believe or that, and I know it's hard when friends, sort of turn their back on you or don't want anything to do with you because you've lost it and you're a heretic now and all of that stuff. I know what it's like, but actually God's with you, and I'd rather have my integrity with God than try and please people, and sometimes you just have to let people go if they want to walk away. You can't make them stay and you can't make them do what you want them to do. But so long as you maintain your integrity with God and what you're sharing and what you're doing is your journey with God, then keep going. It'll be a roller coaster sometimes, and sometimes it's like you're hardly moving, but that's all good because he knows how to dictate what pace you go at. You don't have to set your own pace. And I think the example of, oh, I went off over here and then where is he? Well, in one sense, he hasn't really gone anywhere. He's probably just standing behind you, but you can't see him because you're looking in the wrong direction. And I think, I've done that many times. It's like set out in a direction that I thought was the right one, which is why now I don't do any of that. Now I wouldn't do anything without checking it out first. And there are decisions we have to make all through life. And it's like, okay, Father, do I have peace about this? And sometimes he'll say, you can choose whatever you like to do here, and it's all good. So then it's like, yeah, but can't you just tell me? It's like you say, yeah, I'd much rather you just told me. Yeah, but it's okay. You can choose. It's all good. And sometimes I've realized it isn't, you don't have to be in a particular place it's like God's with you and God will use you wherever you are. And some things are not specific to being in the right location or whatever, because sometimes big changes, big moves, they think, oh, am I getting this right? Am I going to be in the right place? God's with you wherever you are. and he's less concerned and can work things to good no matter where you are, you know. So I'm much more relaxed now about all the sort of the process, not really needing to rush, and much happier about that's how life is. It's good. Life is good because God is good, you know, and you look at it that way. You know, now I see opportunities for change and growth and learning, and before I might have saw obstacles, you know, that were in the way or problems. Now every problem's just an opportunity that I can learn to overcome because I'm an overcomer, as we all are, you know. So sometimes there are bends in the road and you can't see what's coming around the corner. And occasionally I've come around the corner and been somewhere totally unexpected. You know, I wasn't expecting that to be around the corner. And actually, in reality, once I went around the corner, I was actually somewhere else when I was 7 miles transported up the road because I was late to a meeting. And I drove around the corner. I knew what was coming and it wasn't there. And I'm like, where at? Weird. Didn't feel anything, just was somewhere else. You know, and sometimes it's like that. It's like there's so many unexpected things, surprises for us. They're not surprises to God, obviously, but he likes to surprise us sometimes. You know, and some of those things, it's like we're out of our comfort zone. Where am I? You know, and I'm out of my comfort zone right now. You know, there are some things going on that I'm totally out of my comfort zone with. But it's actually, it is exciting to be out of your comfort zone when you see it like that. You know, and I feel, hey, this is an adventure. I'm out of my comfort zone. This is not where I would have envisaged me being. I would not be envisaged me doing this, but actually, this is fun. This is exciting. I'm finding life in this, you know, activity, which is like, you know, awakened. You get awakened when you do something new, almost. Sometimes we can be so settled and everything's comfortable that actually it gets a little bit like mundane, where actually God shakes it up and takes you out of the comfort zone. And it's like, yeah, I'm with you, but, you know, you need to step out here. And it's been quite interesting the last few months. I've been in this place where God sort of pushed me out of the boat and I'm having to swim, you know, and actually I can swim really well naturally, but it feels like I'm really out of my depth in this place. You know, I'm swimming here, but it's like, this is really deep and I'm out of my depth. But hey, it's exciting. And I don't have any fear. But it's still that sense of, okay, this is new. This is going to be interesting, but God is with us, yeah, and he's never going to leave us or forsake us. And he doesn't put us out of the boat so we sink. You know, Peter didn't have to sink. If he'd kept his eyes on Jesus, he wouldn't have sunk. So that's why we need to keep our eyes on him, which means we've got to be close enough to see him, you know, not going too far away. In fact, you know, I like the three-legged race thing. You know, I just want to be tied to Jesus. He moves, I move. Father moves, I move. You know, and that means that I'm always in step. You know. But sometimes the places he takes you is like, woo, this is different. You know? So sometimes you walk around the corner and it's like you're not where you thought you would be, but he's there with you and it's going to be good. You know, and trusting him is so important in this journey. You know, yeah, I'm not trying to lean to my own understanding. I've tried that enough, and you know, only gets you into trouble. So I'm just happy. You know, if he's got some trouble for me, then I know that I'm going to learn to overcome through that trouble. You know, I'm not going to panic. You know.
Well, just to let you know, Mike, you had mentioned something about that. If the Lord is not directing you to go in a direction, don't go there. So just to let you know, on the way home from West Virginia, we did spend the night in Tennessee. There were no billboards saying move here tomorrow. And we had no driving desire to say, gosh, we got to sell the house in Georgia and move to Tennessee. So that is still off the table as far as I'm concerned. But I had an interesting thing. Tuesday, I went in to get my hair cut. And normally the guy who cut my hair, his sister normally cuts my hair, but she's out on pregnancy leave. So he's cutting my hair. And I've known him before. And when our friends who live in Tennessee had the house church, he was one of the guys who would be one of the worship leaders. I mean, lovely guy. He and his wife love the Lord, great worship leader, the whole 9 yards. And so the last time I talked to him, he was telling me about a little bit about when he had been actually on a church, he had been on staff and was sort of being groomed to become the pastor of the church. And he didn't go into a whole lot of details, and I didn't ask, but that all fell apart. Mm. And when I saw him the last time, the guy who was the pastor had just died of cancer. And so it was, sad situation. But anyway, we were talking, and he was telling me about, he's going to this new church that has it's based out of Bethel, the Bethel up on the West Coast. Bill Johnson's saying it's a Bethel plant there, too far away for us to be driving to back and forth. But, he and his wife are involved there. They do worship, 1 or 2 times a month. But in the course of the conversation, he happened to mention, he goes, but I also started up a band. And I said, what kind of a band it is? And he goes, well, we'll be playing 90s type music. And now, and the thing that was interesting, if you told me this about Dallas 2 or 3 years ago, I'd have thought never in a million years, because this, from what I knew, he would have never thought of it. I mean, that would have been like, what do you mean play 90s music? And he said, I just came to the point that I just wanted to be able to play music just for the love of playing music. And so his brother's in the band. And in our state here, we have a lot of cities have squares that they are built around. And like our town here, once a month, they will do like some sort of a special event. They may have a band come in and play some kind of music. They'll do stuff for the kids. So that's the kind of venue that he's looking to play in, where it's like an outside venue. He's not looking to go into bars and all that kind of stuff. But it was just interesting to hear him talking about wanting to play music that was not Christian music, but just wanting to play for the love of just being a musician and just the love of playing music. And knowing that a couple of years ago, that would have never, ever, ever crossed his mind in a gazillion years. But to see, it was so interesting to hear that. And I said, I can appreciate that. And I said, when I was in the church band, sometimes after we were done practicing and we had everything down, sometimes somebody would just start just any old song, and just for the fun of it, everybody just sort of jumped in and played along, and you just did it. You're not there to perform for anybody, but you just enjoy playing music. And so it was very interesting to hear him talking about, I just wanted to do it just for the fun of it, not because, I'm performing and I'm on stage or anything like that. It's just really enjoying music for the sake of doing music. Because it's true, when being in a worship band, it's a whole different experience than when you're just playing for the fun of it and you just don't care. It's just not the same. But there is real fun just playing music for the sake of playing music. And so it was so interesting to hear him making this shift in a direction that I would have never thought he would have ever gone in. I'm thinking like, oh, okay, something is changing here. We'll just see how this goes, in the coming months. But the whole fact that he goes, and I've got a real peace about it. He said, I feel very comfortable about it. He doesn't feel any check from the Lord that, no, this is not the way to go. And was just sort of like, gee, it's sort of nice just to be able to do something like this. And so, sometimes the sacred cows that we think, oh, you can't do that anymore because that's just not being a Christian. And all of a sudden you find out, well, maybe that wasn't really legitimate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, God wants us to enjoy life, and actually he's more concerned about our enjoying and being full of joy and peace and love rather than where that comes from. And people will get it from different things, but he's more interested that we're actually enjoying the life that we have. I mean, to be honest, it's like I can't even think of any 90s music. I mean, 60s, 70s, 80s. I think I missed the 90s by probably the Spice.
Like the one guy, the guy who was the lead guitarist, actually played like in a YouTube tribute band.
Oh,
So
right,
when it
okay.
comes to
Yeah, I
playing
guess,
YouTube, he said, this guy really knows. So that
Yeah.
is sort of the genre
Okay.
that he's going to be playing, which is sort of out of my league because,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm more like the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Well,
But it was,
I wouldn't go as far as the 50s, but you know, I do remember some of the 60s and the 70s, definitely. The 70s was probably when I really got into music, I guess. And I think by the 90s, that's when we started church and was planting churches and stuff. And I think the 90s passed me by. That was my kids' era. they you know, I think some of the stuff, but I missed that. I didn't find U2 until, you know, the last 10 years.
yeah.
So I completely missed them because I don't think I was into music at that time. You know, it wasn't something that was on my radar. Probably only heard what the kids were playing, you know, in the background. I just didn't listen to it. It wasn't something important, you know. And so probably I think, I've no idea really what the 90s were in music. I mean, probably got more idea what today is than the 90s. But I'm sure if you were in it and went through it, you know, he obviously thinks that stuff is great and he would relate to it. I mean, you know, because he doesn't have memories for me. You know, sometimes it's like a song starts from the 70s. Immediately I'll remember where I was, what I was doing, where that importance was, and it will bring back that nostalgia of, hey, yeah, that was good, you know, and remember the sort of the bands that really sort of were I was into at the time. But 90s, you know, other than the Spice Girls, I can't really even think of any. You know?
I mean, I knew who I was familiar with the name, but I couldn't tell you anything that they did because I never heard it.
It was only because the kids played it incessantly all the time.
Yeah,
I remember. But other than that, I can't remember.
For this trip, our little road trip, Joe spent, I don't know how many hours, but he downloaded 15 hours worth of music from the late 50s, the 60s into the early 70s. Okay. Some of it was stuff that he knew that I knew from high school, then from the 60s, then from when we started going together. But he also downloaded clips from the old radio stations in Philadelphia that we both listened to. So you're listening to, you know, the jingles. He did ads, the advertising of that era. He even did TV shows.
Nostalgia trip.
Nostalgia. And the interesting thing was he downloaded Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Now, I never watched Mr. Rogers. I always thought he was a little on the goofy side. But I mean, it was a kid's show and I was older. Right, okay. So it goes through the whole jingle. And then Fred Rogers begins and he said, when I was young, I used to wonder if I was a boy. He said, but then he goes, as I got older, he goes, yeah, he goes, I was a boy. He goes, so if you were born a boy, you're a boy. And if you were born a girl, you're a girl. And you're all right just the way you are. And I thought, oh boy, somebody on YouTube does not know to rip that off because it's not acceptable today. But even some of the things that they did, there was an Armour hot dogs commercial. And it said, fat kids, skinny kids, kids who climb on rocks, dumb kids, sissy kids, even kids with chicken pox. I thought, and I remember hearing that commercial, never really paying attention to what they said until I really listened to it. And I said, they actually said this and played.
It wouldn't be PC today, would it?
Oh, no.
I think Joe, you're not putting Joe to work hard enough. He's got too much time on his hands. I mean, he's obviously not working hard enough for you. Come on.
Oh, he did this. I had no idea he was doing it. And it wasn't until I'd stopped and got coffee and he said, well, what do you want to listen to? And we have all these USB sticks. Your stuff is on there, the restoration of all things. And so he was waiting for me to say, well, what do we want to listen to? And I didn't say anything. So finally he hands me this envelope. He said, okay, here's the last surprise. And I open it up and it's telling me this is a USB and it's all music and things from the past. Right. And so we just played it as the entire loop when we were on the road. And like you said, you go back and you hear something and you remember where you were, or it triggers a memory. What was I doing? Or, what was going on in life at the time? And it was actually a lot of fun to go back and share different things about what a song meant to us. Yeah, so I can appreciate Dallas wanting to play 90s music.
Yeah, well, you probably had more fun listening to that than listening to me anyway. So there you go. Yeah, it was obviously meant to be.
That was the special road trip music. Now he handed me the USB stick. He said, "Now you do whatever you want with this." Because you can go and play it on your computer. So
I'm glad you had a great time anyway. All right, I need to leave it there. So have a good rest of your day. Have fun. And,
okay.
enjoy whatever you're doing and listening to. And I'll see you all next time.